former U.S. Secretary of State, and current climate czar, John Kerry. Among the companies listed on archived versions of the RSTP portfolio is Metabiota, an ostensibly San Francisco-based company that purports to detect, track, and analyze emerging infectious diseases. Financial reports reveal that the RSTP led the company's first round of funding in 2015, which amounted to $30 million. Former managing director and co-founder of RSTP, Neil Callahan, a name that also appears many times on Hunter Biden's hard drive, sits on Metabiota's board of advisors alongside former Clinton official Rob Walker, who discussed in another unearthed Hunter Biden hard drive email reaching out to the Obama Department of Defense with regard to Metabiota. So you can see that this is starting to be all connected now. And there's a reason for this, is because you need to create the narrative to show that Hunter Biden, the laptop is real, the emails, which then are real, the emails show there's a connection to Ukraine, there's a connection to the biolabs, it's connection to Joe Biden, connected to Obama, and this is going to go all the way up to the puppet masters, and this is building the narrative, and people now are seeing this very, very clearly. This is going to be a complete and utter disaster for them in the end. And as more and more evidence is coming out and more emails are produced from the laptop and eventually pictures and video and things like that, the deep state players, big tech, they won't be able to counter this. And this is why they're going to start to shut down communications, because everyone's going to start to realize all the different connections and what they're really involved in. And people are learning this, and it's at actually lightning speed. If you really think about it, they just learned about pedophilia and how many pedophiles are out there, how many cases this Judge Jackson has handled. They just learned that the Hunter Biden laptop, where they said it was Russian disinformation, it was all lies. All the intelligence operatives, Jen Psaki, Joe Biden themselves lied about it. They knew that the laptop was real. And now the information that's coming off of it, it is all real. This is a complete and utter disaster for them. And think about what the Trump and the Patriots are doing right now. They're making them feel pain every step of the way. And Trump, he's actually giving Biden one crisis after another. He cannot handle all this. Actually, the puppet masters are having a difficult time managing this. You see, the propaganda can only work so far. If you have too many crises on hand, it's very difficult to control. This is why we see North Korea all of a sudden displaying and shooting missiles. I wonder if Trump, in communication with Kim Jong-un, if they set this up at the exact moment to create another crisis. Remember, this was part of their 16-year plan. Remember, this is what they were trying to do. I'm just wondering, just like with Afghanistan, just like with the border, just like with Ukraine, if Trump has this crisis brewing, and now Biden's going to have to deal with North Korea, with Ukraine, Taiwan, the border, the economy, Afghanistan, all at the same time. You can't have all of these crises happening at the same time. They just can't control the propaganda enough. And you can see that this is starting to break down on the deep state players, and it's getting worse and worse for them. Not getting better. The same thing with the pandemic. He has to handle what's happening with the pandemic too, because remember, the pandemic didn't go away. It's still there. And I don't mean that everyone's being locked down. I'm saying that people still remember. The people are still questioning everything. Actually, Ron Johnson, is blasting the federal health agencies for their continued cover-up of data relating to the adverse side effects of the vaccine. Now they're trying to normalize blood clots. Now think about it. We've known about the blood clots from the vaccines. Now they're trying to say, ooh, blood clots are a real thing. Well, what people are going to start to realize is that the only people that have blood clots are the people that got the vaccines and the boosters. And this is going to be a complete and utter disaster for them in the end. And remember, all the fake numbers and everything that they've been talking about where they're trying to backtrack on it, everyone's going to be looking at the Biden administration. You told us to take the vaccine. You said this was safe. You said this would end it. But now we have other problems with the vaccine and the boosters. This whole thing is out of control. And the Biden administration, the puppet master, the FDA, the CDC, They can't control this anymore, and the people are waking up to this. Actually, Rand Paul, he's pushing a bill in the Senate, and the Senate voted 57-40 to end the mask mandates on the planes. And we know that the CEOs have written a letter to say it's enough already. But I don't think this is going to go away. I think the people in the end are going to demand accountability for all of this. Everything that they put us through, the force that they used to get people vaccinated, the lies that they told us and gave us the fake numbers to make everyone believe that they needed to get the vaccine. Because now when people start to learn, saying, hey, wait a minute, you're saying that this many people didn't die from COVID? Wait, this many people didn't have COVID? You're backtracking on the numbers? We had a 99.99x survival rate? Why were you telling us it was mandatory? Why were you pushing a vaccine? Actually, you were pushing a vaccine that wasn't even the FDA-approved vaccine. It was the emergency use vaccine. All of it was a lie. And then people are going to learn that the PCR test was a lie. Everything was a lie. This whole thing is going to fall and collapse around them, just like everything else. Sometimes it takes a little time. It's almost like Antifa. I mean, think about it. 1 year makes a huge difference. Remember this individual, Joseph Alkoff? He was an Antifa leader in Washington, and he showed up many, many times with many different Democratic policymakers, Maxine Waters and many others. And now this individual is arrested and being brought up on charges of aggravated assault and ethnic intimidation for allegedly being part of an Antifa mob in November that attacks 2 Marines. They were both Hispanic, and Alkoff and 2 others are charged in the attack, and they've pleaded not guilty, of course. I'm not going to plead guilty. And now you can see the Democratic officials, they're trying to distance themselves from this individual. But it was all praises, and everyone's like, oh, yes, this is the person, yes. And now look what's happening. I do believe this is going to continue as time goes on. It's going to get a lot worse. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is we can see that the election fraud information is continually pouring out. And True the Vote is doing a fantastic job in Wisconsin, and Liberty Watch put this out on Telegram and said the following. Catherine Engelbrecht and Greg Phillips of True the Vote presented testimony about their investigation into the ballot trafficking in the Wisconsin 2020 election. This was not the most secure election ever, they said. It was quite possibly one of the least. We've watched the mass mail-out of paper ballots to highly inaccurate voter records. The harried installation of by-mail absentee ballot drop boxes privately funded by billionaire tech magnates, and the hundreds of legislative changes, lawsuits, consent decrees, and all that fundamentally altered election processes, and all those came together in 2020 under the fog of COVID. It's hard not to look at the confluence of events and come away with any conclusion other than it was planned. True the Vote formed a working hypothesis in part from informant testimonies across the country. It went something like this. If non-profit groups being funded by the CTCL and others were going to exploit weaknesses in our election process, then the exploitation would likely involve mail ballots, which are notoriously insecure, and the newly introduced and highly unregulated absentee ballot drop boxes. It turns out that the WEC did not follow through with its stated commitment to CISA guidelines for Dropbox security. Open Records requests confirmed that there was no Dropbox surveillance video available for review in any municipality in Wisconsin except Brown Deer. So True the Vote shifted to commercially available cell phone data. The group used cutting-edge geo-fence technology, able to track cell phones within a few inches. To put the sophistication of the technology into perspective, Phillips quoted Georgetown law professor Paul Ohm, who said DNA is the only thing harder to anonymize than precise geolocation data. True the Vote purchased 10 trillion of cell signals in Arizona, Georgia, Texas, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In Wisconsin, the group looked at 1.1 trillion signals, representing 421,000 unique devices, 20 terabytes of data during the period of 10/1 to 11/8. Which encompassed several weeks before early voting began on 10/20. This allowed True the Vote to build a pre-election pattern of life to help identify the ballot trafficking mules. The team then narrowed down the surveillance to individuals that visited at least 5 NGO offices and 26 drop boxes during the early voting period, a pattern that was contrary to their previous daily activity. 138 people in Milwaukee, Racine, and Green Bay fit that profile. These individuals made 3,568 visits to drop boxes during the 2020 election. Phillips noted that 14 of these traffickers also participated in one or more of the violent riots in Wisconsin in 2020. There are five key components to the ballot trafficking hypothesis: inaccurate voter rolls, mass mail ballots, NGOs, privately funded drop boxes, and money. Following the money, True the Vote has uncovered a nationwide grift around voting, in which not-for-profit orchestrated paid ballot collection, ballot preparation, and harvested ballot delivery operation. The group estimates that at least 7% of all mail-in ballots, 138,000 in Wisconsin, 4.8 million nationwide, were trafficked during the 2020 election. This was an organized crime that was perpetrated on Americans. During the Q&A sessions, Phillips mentioned that while they have the names of the 5 NGOs and 138 individuals, they are unable to release the information due to an active legal investigation. Engelbrecht concluded by reiterating that ballot drop boxes, mass mail-in ballots, and in particular dirty voter rolls are the gateway to fraud in our election. States must commit to eliminating these sources of cheating, and the penalties for fraud must be severe. Absolutely. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is we know that we mentioned this before. Trump, he has a lawsuit going against Hillary Clinton, Peter Strzok, James Comey, and the rest. Now, I do believe this is going to tie into what Durham is doing right now, and everything that Trump is saying in the lawsuit is going to be backed up by probably Weiss and Durham as they unseal indictments. And this is going to allow people to speak about this freely. Now, Brian Cates, he put this out because people are worrying about the statutes of limitations and what is going on here. And he said the following: all those who've been worrying about the expiration of the statute of limitations on this criminal conspiracy between the Clinton campaign, the DNC, Fusion, Perkins Coie, and others are going to love what Trump's legal team shows on page 58. This RICO criminal conspiracy is still active and ongoing. That means the 5-year statute of limitations keeps being reset with each new action the plotters take in concert to further their criminal conspiracy. So we don't have to worry about this. Now, the other thing that's very interesting about this lawsuit that Trump brought up, did everyone notice who's missing? Rod Rosenstein. Don't you find that interesting?
Good work, no
Brian
Pats. That
Cates
was a hell of a fight.
explains this, and I think this is where this is going to